You deal with imposter syndrome? Like, how do you actually like confront that experience?
I still deal with it, man. I dealt with it this morning when they sent me the syllabus.
Yeah, yeah.
I still deal with it. How do I deal with it? I just remind myself that, and this is something that I would tell a client too. Like, this is not a mistake. There were hundreds of applicants. It took 7, 8. I applied for this August last year.
Yeah.
This
Oh,
is how,
it's a year.
when they called me for this interview, I forgot. And,
Yeah.
and this is just their process. They have a very rigorous process of selecting people they interview, forget hiring, right? And so I ask myself, and I would tell a client, or I will tell someone like yourself, whenever you find yourself or in a situation in life when you're having these imposter symptoms, to check the facts. What are the facts? This is not a lie. I do have the credentials that my resume says. I do have the knowledge that my resume says. I did go to all of these classes. I did obtain all of this education. I do have the knowledge. And so just because I feel unsafe in these spaces doesn't mean that I'm actually unsafe. It's just a feeling.
Yeah.
And the feeling has nothing to do with the tangible facts. So for me is I try to go back to the facts to help. How do you deal with imposter syndrome?
I feel like I don't get imposter syndrome.
You're just confident like that?
No, I have other problems. I have other problems. Because I don't think I've ever felt like, if anything, I've always been a bit arrogant and and overconfident.
That's good.
But yeah, it's undone me sometimes, right? Where it's like, this is the problem with overconfident people, or people who think they're smarter, is that they think just because they're smarter or confident that it's gonna work out,
Yeah.
right? My biggest thing, and I'm working on this right now with my therapist, is essentially like discipline, consistency, and I think mostly those two things, right? Because a lot of those things tie into like my inability to commit at times, and I'm not just talking relationships. Oh, that's been a thing, right? But even like and this is what I was even referencing last year. I started this podcast last year, but clearly we restarted the podcast. And there's a reason for that, right? Because I went in hella bullish, thinking I'm like, I got this, da 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 da. I don't need to do this, I don't need to do that.
I'm good like that. I got this.
No, I wasn't, bro. Crashed. We were kind of getting somewhere, but it's like, yo, and that's a pattern that's replayed throughout my whole life.
You see a theme, a recurring theme, just the same thing, but different settings, right? Like you said,
Exactly.
projects, personal passions, relationships, right?
Yeah.
It just comes back again.
It comes back again, yo. And this year, I've determined to commit, right? And I've been good about it. That's something I've been consistent in. Other parts of my life, you mentioned we got to work on coping
Coping
skills.
skills.
I need to, my therapist is, when we talk about discipline, that's what we talking about, coping skills.
Right,
You know what I
right.
mean? To a certain extent with me, right? So like, but that's why, even though we had some hiccups in April with the event, like we're keeping the ball rolling, because it's like, I wanted to quit, bro.
Yeah.
And that shit happened. I was like, oh my God.
Because you put in so much work and it was such a dope event. Like it was
Yeah.
just so many good connections. To this day, I still have connections with people I
Yeah.
met there, and everybody was just like, wow, this was amazing. It was such a great event.
No, yeah, I'm happy we added value to people's lives, and that is something that like I had to keep telling myself, like, yo, we still did something good.
You did. You
know what I
absolutely
mean?
did. For me, and I want to say definitely, and I think I've talked to different people about this. It was huge for me. I think that this was such, because I tend to stay more in the shadows, and talking about education, how are you going to educate if you're always hiding? And
Yeah.
I work very isolated, and it's just I'm doing my therapy thing, so I don't get to go out in the community a lot. I don't have coworkers, I don't have peers that I can relate to. But that event, and the way that it was so intimate, and you were so purposeful in the way you set it up, for me it was so impactful. I don't think you realized how impactful that night was for me. And I will always remember that night, talk about imposter syndrome. I was like, what? Why am I speaking at this event? Like, who am I to be speaking? And you giving me the opportunity and just being so genuine in your intentions and what you wanted to accomplish that night propelled me to be like, this is another way that I can educate. This is another way that I can connect. Like, I do have something to say. And so that would always be a special place in my heart of, remember that first event that I ever did?
Yeah.
So thank you. That was great.
If you're trying to pay for Daniel to go back to school, like and subscribe.
Help the youth.
Yes, I'm the youth.
Only you can hear my side. Oh my, Lord, can you help me find the light? 'Cause I fell into the dark. Only you can hear my side.
I blinked 4 times and 4 years done passed by. It only felt like 4 damn minutes done passed by. I done seen how quick life can pass by. You done live, you done love, then cried like mad times. Like oh my, then had a whole crowd say oh my, but that was mad times. That was past times.